I have 7:01. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Dreer,
Present.
Counselor Irvin,
Here.
Counselor Fleck,
Here.
Counselor Merriday,
Here.
Counselor Savage,
Here.
Counselor Stennett,
Here.
Mayor Soulsby.
Here. I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first order of business is a proclamation. It's Peace Officers Memorial Day Proclamation. Whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation which designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it falls as Police Week. And whereas the members of the law enforcement agency of the City of Cottage Grove play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and the freedoms of citizens of the City of Cottage Grove. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police department and the members of our police department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. Whereas the police department of the City of Cottage Grove has grown to be a modern and scientific law enforcement agency which increasingly provides a vital public service. Now thereof, I, Candace Soulsby, Mayor of the City of Cottage Grove, call upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 12th through May 18th, 2024 as Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies in which all of our people may join in commemoration police officers, past and present, whose their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and doing so have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and the security of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of City of Cottage Grove to observe Wednesday, May 15th, 2024 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those peace officers who through their courageous deeds have lost their lives or have become disabled in the performance of their duty. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Cottage Grove to be affixed this 13th day of May, 2024. Chief Chase. Items to be added to the agenda. I see none. Appearance of interested citizens. This is a time for citizen comment. The council will first take comments addressing items not listed on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. The council will then take comments addressing action items on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. Individual speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer, provide their name, identify whether they are a city resident, and if so, their ward. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less with council approval. Comments regarding any matter scheduled for a public hearing may be provided only during that hearing. The council will not make any decisions based on public comment. However, staff and council may choose to ask questions or comment follow the conclusion of the citizen comments. Patrick Cartwright. Not on the agenda.
There we go. Thank you. I appreciate that day.
I wanted to address the issue that's coming up on the 18th. I probably won't be able to attend, but I would like my voice to be kind of heard. I hope that as we move forward with this, that we look at our neighbors, look at the impact that it causes upon them. And I was very pleased to read that St. Vincent de Paul was an option to look at as well. I feel Carry It Forward has dropped the ball. They've been a breach of contract for almost the beginning because they failed to provide the quarterly reports. They failed to provide adequate communication, I think, with the council, city manager, mayor. I think that if we go forward and we have a managed site, we should look into the future, look behind us. I don't think we need what's behind us anymore. Let's just try to make this work. I don't know what's going to happen to the people that's over there. I was told by a few of the residents that they've already been told that they're not going to be there. They stopped by and said, Carry It Forward's told them at the end of the month or this month or next month, I can't remember, that they're going to be gone. That's 30 more people, 35, whatever we have over there, that's going to be out on the streets. We don't really have a huge plan for it. And I think maybe, and I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this, but I think maybe over at Regional Park is the best place. Consolidate everybody and try to keep the trash down. I feel dusk to dawn is the best way to go. I feel that we just have an accumulation of trash that occurs when we have these sites like this. So I would just ask that, put a little thought in it. Remember the lessons we learned. There are people, they need to have somewhere to go, but I don't think it needs to be a permanent place for them to be. I think dusk to dawn is the best. That's my opinion. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Linda Olson.
Linda Olson, 1305 Gerard. So I'm hoping that as you hold this discussion this following weekend, you'll also take into consideration that nothing about being homeless identifies them as being without funds, just being without a house. Campers pay to camp on improved publicly owned spaces to help offset the expense of utilities and services. I recommend that these campers be charged according to established Park and Recreation Department rates based upon services offered for a maximum stay of 14 days. They can return after spending at least 3 days in another park or campground based upon first come, first serve availability. ODF enforcement currently considers primitive camping as with no toilet facilities or running water. Illegal dumping is charged $1,500 for leaving a mess. We do take pictures up in the district and they follow up with that. 14 days in district, they have to be out of the district for 14 days. We currently have concerts in the park coming up. Springfield made panhandling illegal against a city ordinance, was very effective. Do we have a similar ordinance? So I pulled up the Parks and Recreation. It says you can stay 14 consecutive days in a regular campsite, and may return after spending at least 3 nights out of the park. Maximum time allowed in any campground is 14 days and within any 17-day period. Maximum stay for hikers is 3 consecutive days. Now they do have tents, so they do have a home. There are 6 types of basic campsites as well as accessible campsites in our district. There are full hookup, electrical sites, tent sites, primitive sites with no hookups, no water source. I do believe that the rates that they currently charge for electric, standard, and water, it is $24 a night. $35 is the max that we could charge. They bring their own RV trailer or tent. If it's tent only, water at the site or nearby, but no electrical, it's $17 a night. Primitive to walk to areas, it's $0 for a night, 11 if there's a vault toilet, if they have a host. So I'd like to think that we would look at some avenues to help offset the cost to the community. There is an extra charge of $7 a night for a vehicle. So if you have extra vehicles, there's an additional charge. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Long.
Good evening. My name is Susan Lawn. I live at 20 Bengal Court here in Cottage Grove. I I don't know how many of you shop at Safeway, but I work there. And it's a mess. We have the homeless camps coming in constantly, filling their carts to the brim and trying to get out of the door. I think there was an article in the paper about someone being tackled and fighting, and it took like 3 men to hold him down while his mother was screaming at them to let him go. So I just want to speak on behalf of myself and my colleagues there that, we've had enough of it too. It's dangerous, it's dirty, they're in the bathroom. They're coming through, their hands are flipping filthy, and we're trying to check them out, take their money, so on and so forth. From what I understand, they have areas to bathe. There's community showers, there's bathrooms with water. We've been supplying them as a city, and a lot of people have been doing it individually. And, as a whole, it just seems like we've got to figure out the next step. We're just kind of all floundering, not knowing what to do when these people truly need help. I believe they need help, mental health facilities. South Lane Mental Health is you can't even get in there. And then, drug abuse is rampant, as we all know, taking advantage of the Narcan situation. We need to get some type of Serenity Lane type place built, or so. I mean, to me, we need to vet them. Who needs help, mental help? Who needs drug help? Who needs to, moms with kids? I know a couple moms whose teenagers run away from home so they can be together, and so they're camping out over there. And where are those parents? We just need to check into everyone individually, I think, make a note of who they are, what their plans are, what they personally need. And thank you.
Thank you. Johanna Z.
Is the timer broken? Oh, okay, thank you. Johanna Z, I live within the city limits. First, I want to mention, it seems like a lot of the same people are coming up here, but I want to point out that what I'm hearing from people of why they don't come and speak at council, and I had another one added to that list tonight. They're too busy or they're working. It doesn't seem to make a difference, no matter how much they've spoken up in the past. They feel intimidated or retaliated against. And the last one said, I'm too hot-headed. I wouldn't be able to keep my cool speaking to the council. So I'm speaking on behalf of many people who've asked me to speak tonight regarding this work session. I do know that I don't believe this was the intention of Councilor Meriday initially. He wanted a community meeting with stakeholders where people got to interact, a back and forth. So a work session we know is not that. It's just the city councilors speaking among themselves with presentations. So we have 2 biohazard sites. If you haven't, I don't know if our city attorney has been to either of these sites specifically. I think that if she was and spent some time going through it, she would note that it was definitely a state-created danger. Again, I've said that phrase many times. It's just a lawsuit waiting to happen. When I first early on visited one of the Dairy Mart sites, one gentleman told me he already had the rat trap set up. And obviously it's gotten a lot worse than then. So what makes us think that we can now be successful in managing a new site? It's people use those trails out there. You have many dogs that are left to run. If you've ever been to the Dairy Mart site, dogs are left running, breeding. They have diarrhea everywhere. They're not being watched or managed. That area is pretty much the fencing, the garbage can, the signs, at the Dairy Mart site for the dog park have been destroyed, I don't know what would be different if we've had challenges and the metrics for success at the 99 site, which is managed and has facilities, has been a failure. How are we then going to go and do this successfully out there? Yes, it's been a failure. If you look at how many people out have been there that actually went into permanent housing, I think we've got maybe 1 out of maybe 45. So that is my concern there. So we're not really, this is not really kind what we're doing. People are not really living in these facilities. They're actually just dying there. Having listened to people, do you know that we've got people from these camps that are signing the recall petition because they're very, very unhappy with the situation that is there? So we've given solutions. And again, I know that our city manager has not looked at the ordinance for Lebanon that I have given to every single one of you guys. And I'm hoping our city attorney does, because I think the language is very, very good. It's a modified dusk to dawn. It gives people a place to be at night and a separate place for them to be during the day with some basic general rules. One of my big questions I have for you, though, is why isn't the car camping ordinance, the cars being enforced? That is a big one. We've got cars everywhere in our parks that are not being enforced. And I just want to add this lastly is who's going to pay and how are we going to pay for this? We don't have any funds left. We don't have to be responsible for everyone out there as much as we want to help everybody. I've heard of so many people that are being victimized. All we're going to do is just victimize a whole new set of people out there at that other site. Neighbors are worried, they're upset. No matter where you put it, you put the same thing. We're just victimizing more people. So how do we decide who we help? Who are the ones that are contributing to our community? I am happy, again, to always sit down with anybody. We've spent a lot of time researching this issue and happy to offer our thoughts. You know, we visited various places throughout the state of what's working, what's not working. We have given solutions. I recently met Micah, who started the Conestoga Hut program. He
John,
came up with that name. Thank you.
gotta finish.
And that would be wonderful for the chronically homeless that, you know, wouldn't be able to move around from site to site. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Action items on the agenda. Johanna Z.
Sorry, this is kind of funny. Thank you, Johanna Z. I live within the city limits. Concerning the registration of empty buildings downtown, I understand this has been tried before and it didn't work. I just had the opportunity to speak to the owner of the Bank of America building. I don't know if you know, but one of those windows have been smashed recently and graffiti on the side. I feel like that although the essence behind it is probably a very good one. We certainly don't want empty buildings. We don't want, you know, but I don't think that this is lawful because it is private property. Someone could just as easily say, oh, I'm going to lease it out for storage for $1 a year or something. And then it's not empty anymore. And you don't, you know, it doesn't apply to anything that you're suggesting with that. I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse on this one. I think there's other priorities. We've got to clean up the situation in our community before we try to do things like this. And the biggest thing I want to say is, you know, as a community, we can force people to do things because they're afraid of a fine or an ordinance or, and it is punitive. You know, I know you said, City Manager Sauerwein this morning, that this is not punitive, but that's sure what it feels like. If people don't comply with it, it would be punitive. Why can't we do things rather than out of fear, but doing it because it's the right thing to do? You know, as a community, we want to have buildings that are taken care of. But the essence of that is, well, I'm doing it because I have to. Why not do it because we want to? We want to take care of our community. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of retaliation if that ends up being put forth in any way. So, and I do invite you to come down to, you know, and talk to some of the other business owners that you haven't met yet, who do have other empty buildings on the property. I made a good connection with the Bank of America owner and talked to him about why his building's not being rented. And it's about relationships, develop relationships with people, support people. And there are other issues why these buildings are empty. So rather than taking a punitive stance, let's look at taking a community stance and work together on this. So thank you for that.
Thank you. All right, public hearings. This evening, there will be 4 public hearings. These proceedings are being recorded. I will now open the first public hearing at 7:21. This public hearing will be held for the purpose of taking comments on declaring surplus real property at 79030 Thornton Lane. We will now have a staff report from the city planner, Mr. Monken.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. The city of Cottage Grove is the owner of real property located at 79030 Thornton Lane in Cottage Grove. This 0.3 acre parcel is the location of a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath detached single-family residence. The city acquired the dwelling as part of its purchase of Middlefield Golf Course when it was on the same portion as a portion of the golf course. In 2022, city staff contracted with Lane County Surveyor to partition off the dwelling from the golf course property, and then subsequently city staff rezoned the property to R1 single family residential from Parks and Rec for the purposes of legalizing it as a permitted use and prepare it for potential sale. The tenants of the dwelling were notified of the city's intention to sell the property and were given the opportunity to purchase the dwelling. In March of this year, the tenants moved away and staff began advertising the dwelling to local realtors. In early April, staff mailed flyers to approximately 40 South Lane County, North Douglas County realtors, inviting them to notify clients of the opportunity to bid on the property. The opportunity was also advertised on the city's website. The bidding period closed on April 19th, 2024, with 2 bids. The minimum acceptable bid being $300,000. Thank you. The winning bid submitted by Sharkey Properties LLC was for $325,000 even. At this time, staff is presenting the highest bid to council for consideration. Staff recommends holding public hearing to consider declaring the parcel surplus and to accept the offer bid from Mr. Sharkey of Sharkey Properties LLC.
Any questions? Go into public testimony. We'll now take public testimony for all persons testifying. Please state your name and address for the record. I see none. Questions from council? I now close the first public hearing at 7:23 p.m. I'll now open the second public hearing at 7:24 p.m. This public hearing will be held for the purpose of taking comments on declaring surplus real property, map and tax lot 20-03-32-43-01400, tax lot 20-03-32-43-01400. We'll now have a staff report by the city planner, Mr. Mongan.
Thank you again, Mayor. City of Cottage Grove is the owner of real property located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Sweet Lane and South R Street. This unaddressed lot, known as tax lot 1400, is lot 14 of the first edition of the Cottage Grove Industrial Park subdivision. This property and other lots of the subdivision were purchased in 2019 with the intent of extending South R Street right-of-way and to create lots for sale for industrial use. At this time, the city has received an offer in writing from Ernest Olson Jr. to purchase lot 14 from the city for the purposes of industrial development. Mr. Olson's offer of $632,164.50 or $225 per square foot is attached to this memo. At the time the offer was received from Mr. Olson, the property was not listed or advertised for sale by an agent or the city. Mr. Olson inquired in person regarding the property before making his written offer. While the subject property was always intended to be sold for industrial development, it is appropriate for the council to solicit input from the public via this public hearing prior to declaring the property surplus, hence this public hearing. Upon completion of the public hearing, council will consider a resolution declaring the property as surplus and authorizing city manager to sign the necessary documents to complete the sale of the property to Mr. Olson.
We will now take public testimony. For all persons testifying, please state your name and address for the record. I see none. Are there any questions from council? Counselor Merryday.
Planner Mongan, I see that Mr. Olson intends to put, is it mobile storage containers there, or is it storage units?
Mayor, Councilor Mayor, it's my understanding that Mr. Olson has a plan for self-service storage and some other similar related services to the community, I guess, if you will. That's correct. We haven't seen any plans yet or anything like that, though.
And would that be a permitted use for that area?
It is an outright permitted use.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I'll now close the public hearing at 7:27 PM. The final two public hearings are legislative public hearings. The first will be a public hearing for the ordinance amending the Cottage Grove Municipal Code regarding various sections of Title 14, and the last will be a public hearing for the ordinance amending the Cottage Grove Comprehensive Plan Land Use Diagram Map and Title 14, Land Use District Map for 2352 and 2416 East Whitaker Avenue, map 20-03-27-32, tax lots 02300 and 00801, MSPA 1-22. In accordance with state law and city land use procedures, I will summarize tonight's type 4 legislative procedure and the standards of review. First, staff will review the staff report and identify the applicable substantive criteria from the city's comprehensive plan and/or state of Oregon statewide planning goals that apply to the proposal. Staff will also review the Planning Commission's recommendation on this proposal. Following the staff's presentation, we will take public testimony and then return to staff to present additional material on comments based on testimony. Following that, council will close the public hearing. Your testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the identified substantive criteria or other substantive criteria in the comprehensive plan, development code, or statewide planning goals, which you believe apply to this application. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker or other interested parties opportunity to respond may prelude an appeal of a decision of the proposal at issue. For anyone wishing to speak, if you are accessing the meeting in person or using video, please raise your hand to be recognized. If you're accessing the meeting using only audio, please announce that you would like to speak. When called upon to speak, you must be recognized by the presiding officer, state your name and address for the public record. We ask that each speaker limit themselves to no more than 3 minutes. Presentations will be timed and you will be informed when your allotted time has expired. All speakers exceeding the time limit will be asked by the presiding officer to immediately conclude their remarks. If you do not finish your presentation, be sure to provide a copy of your statement to the staff. Written testimony may be offered and be considered made part of the record. In order to minimize repetitive testimony, organizations are encouraged to have only one person speak for the group. Each person may testify only once, unless called upon by the request of the council members to respond to a question. Conflicts of interest. Before we begin, the chair and councilors are required to disclose any conflicts of interest and ex parte contacts that we have or had with the proposal or applicants. Does any of the council wish to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest in either of these matters?
I believe we skipped an item. Doesn't matter what order we're in. Didn't we miss our item C?
Mayor, Council Fleck, she announced both items that will be in there
Oh,
at
I
the top.
apologize. Okay, thank you. Madam Mayor, I will declare that I spoke with the applicant for item D briefly at the front of this meeting, but it did not contain any conversation around the subject matter.
Anyone else? Okay. I will now open the public hearing for an ordinance amending the Cottage Grove Municipal Code regarding various sections of Title 14 at 7:31 PM. May we please have the staff report?
Yes, ma'am. So the purpose of this public hearing is to receive comments on proposed amendments to various sections of Title 14 of the Cottage Grove Development Code. Staff is proposing these amendments in an effort to address observed inconsistencies in the code, errors, and other amendments related to recent completed studies such as the Affordable Housing Implementation Plan. The following chapters and section of Title 14 of the Cottage Grove Municipal Code are proposed to be amended by this application. Section 1422-120, Section 1423-110, Section 1424-110, Chapter 1432, Sections 200 and 400, and sections of Chapter 1441. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the attached ordinance on May 20th and recommended approval of the draft ordinance to council. This time I will briefly go through the proposed amendments. Page 4 of the staff report packet in table 1422-110, exhibit A of the ordinance. You'll see there that there's a struck through zero lot line housing non-common wall. Staff in a 2019 code amendment had removed the definition for and the special use conditions of zero lot line housing. Inadvertently in a subsequent code amendment, this particular section of the code was added back in. This proposed amendment would remove this from the table. Same table, same table. You'll see that accessory structures in excess of 16 feet are conditionally permitted uses under the code at present. This is problematic for accessory dwelling units, which also fall under the accessory structure standards. This would just accept accessory dwelling units from that conditionally permitted use requirement. Next proposed amendment is in the fence height section. It has to do with fence heights. Staff has received many requests over the years to allow for a 5-foot tall fence in the front yard setback. Staff is proposing this amendment. We've had several unsuccessful attempts at variance in the past, and it just seems that this is a logical amendment to consider, given the desire for keeping pets in the yards and deterring folks from maybe hopping over the fence. The current standard is 4 feet. Staff is proposing 5. See, next proposed amendment again just has to deal with accessory dwelling units by including that language in the rear setback standards. At present, it just says structure, but we wanted to be explicit that accessory dwelling units were considered as part of that as well. Next proposed amendment. Which one? I can't hear you. I'm sorry, Counselor. 15, thank you. In 2016, the city went from having a heavy industrial use and a light industrial use to only having an industrial use. Inadvertently at that time, the height limitation criterion here still listed M1 and M2. That's the heavy and light industrial. This is just cleaning it up to say industrial zone now. Wireless telecommunication facilities in industrial zone. It currently is just listed as a conditional use. In the commercial zone, there's actually a standard for how to do a layout for a wireless telecommunication facility. Staff thought it would be beneficial to any potential applicants that when they're applying for a conditional use to have a wireless telecommunications facility installed, that it be done to a standard. So this would add the standards of section 1423 to the code. In the street tree list, we've struck all ash trees from the proposed tree list. There's a pest that's moved into the state of Oregon after being in the US for many, many years. It's finally made its way to Oregon and was discovered in Forest Grove. This action will just help to remove the permission or outright permission for planting of street trees. Doesn't affect private property, but this would be a street tree, remove it from the tree list. It also was an action item of the recently adopted urban forest management plan. Section 1432 500 fences and walls. Again, that just reflects the 4 to 5 foot change if that's approved. Section 1443 115. This section here removes language regarding the maximum densities. City of Cottage Grove doesn't, since 2019, hasn't had a maximum density as long as you meet the minimum lot size requirements. You can have as many lots as you want. This just removes that language, preventing it. Also, it adds in under flexible lot sizes, the statute provisions, Oregon statute, revised statute provisions for middle housing land division, which again is already a statute that an applicant could take advantage of. It just is now referenced in the code. Next proposed amendment is in chapter or title section 1443 140. Another remnant from a previous code amendment. The development code used to lie in title 18 where it was uncodified. When it was codified in I believe it was 2016 or shortly before that. Each chapter was only called chapter 5 or whatever. Well, with the codification of the code and moving it to title 14, now became chapter 14 point something, et cetera, et cetera. So this one just missed that amendment. Also, we added in here language regarding expedited land division procedures per Oregon revised statute. And that's middle housing, which we covered. Another bit of housekeeping under filing and recording of plats, removed the requirement that the applicant or developer provide a Mylar copy of their recorded plat. Lane County surveyor hasn't accepted Mylar plats for several years, so that would require them to make a special plat just for us. A copy will suffice as long as it's on the proper paper. And most of the time we only look at things digitally now anyway. Replatting and vacations. There was a great surveyor many years ago, Larry Olson, who had brought this to my attention. But the way our replatting and vacation standards read, it would read that if you wanted to replat, that is to even just do a lot consolidation of your house and the lot next to you, it would require a replat, but it would require the signatures of every single property owner in the subdivision. That in some cases could be several hundred. What this proposed amendment would do is just make it the affected lots, signatures of the affected property owners. And that concludes the proposed amendments. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Mongan. Council have questions?
Was there also an item about the side yard fence distance from
Oh, I
the?
did miss that.
Yeah, and I did too, and I didn't see it, but I remember talking about it Friday.
Okay, it's on on page 8 of the staff report. Thank you, Councilor Fleck. What this adds to the max height on interior side for setbacks. for historically, and again, prior to 2019, the front yard setback in the R1 zone was 15 feet. It's now 10 feet. But it's left folks wondering, okay, does that mean fences start at 15 feet now, or is it 10 feet? What we wanted to do and what we've proposed is that they can go from the 4 foot, which is current code, or 5 if approved or adopted, up to 7 feet, which is our max fence height at the front facade of their building or house. This is just for ease of the development, and it would vary based on the house itself. And so while we do have some houses that are very close to the right of way due to historic standards, if we've got one that's much further setback, this would also prevent a 7-foot fence from being just 10 feet behind the property line, even though the house could be 30 feet behind the property line. Now it would say we got to be right there at the front facade or less.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Mongan. At this time, we'll receive testimony from interested members of the public. Please remember to state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Patrick Cartwright, 2145 South Orange Street. I am in favor of every one of these changes. I've dealt with them in the past and it's been a royal pain. Anytime we can sanitize some of this stuff, I would suggest let's do it, because fencing, it's very common for somebody to run into a fencing contractor, put up a fence. They don't know what city code is. And I think everything that Mr. Mongan has presented is worthy.
Thank you, Mr. Cartwright. Anyone else? Well, if there's no other comment, I will now go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:43. Thank you. I will now open the next public hearing for ordinance amending the Cottage Grove Comprehensive Plan Land Use Diagram Map and Title 14 Land Use District Map for 2352 and 2416 East Whitaker Avenue, map 20-03-27-32, tax lots 02300 and 00801, MCPA 1-22. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Purpose of this public hearing is to receive comments on the proposed amendment of the comprehensive land use map diagram and the Title 14 Cottage Grove Development Code land use district map for 2.58 acres of land owned by Clayton Payne at 2352 and 2416 East Whitaker Avenue from the current M medium density residential designation and R2 multifamily residential zoning to I industrial designation and M industrial zoning. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 20th, 2024, and did not recommend approval to council. It is now appropriate for the council hold a public hearing on the ordinance. This ordinance has been available for more than 1 week prior to this hearing. Staff is not recommending adoption. If the council chooses to adopt this ordinance, staff requests that the item be continued to a future date so that findings can be made for the statewide planning goals and comprehensive plan findings that were not successfully achieved at present.
Does council have any questions? At this time, we will receive testimony for interested citizens. Members of the public, please remember to state your name and address for the record.
Amy Mary Day, 205 Adams. There has been an ongoing kerfluffle about the ranking of the city's parks and their use as potentially sites for addressing the unhoused. I have never seen a comparable list of other sorts of properties that the city is responsible for, including the industrial park and these small, the home we heard about that's being sold and around the R Street and these pieces. And I'm just wondering if there has been any city attention to ranking the other properties that the city owns. I know that there are an really untold number of them along that are in the Greenway, for instance, little pieces. And I'm just wondering if industrial land could be used for something else besides industrial land. Thank you.
At this point, you are welcome to ask questions of the speaker. Does anyone have a question? Counselor Flack.
I believe the speaker was actually referencing, I think it's item B on this is my guess. I think that she wanted to give testimony on the industrial park property. That's my guess.
You're welcome to speak.
Yes, my name is Clayton Payne, and I'm the one that's requesting a zone change at 2352 and 2416 East Whitaker. You know, a year ago when I started this whole thing, and I had talked to Faye and Eric both, and they both thought it was a great idea to have so many warehouses because there's none available anywhere. You know, you can't find any anywhere, and I just have spent a lot of time and energy trying to figure this out so I can do something over there. The place needs some work done on it. So anyway, that's what I'm asking.
Anyone have questions? Thank you. Anyone have any questions of the staff? Counselor Irvin?
Thank you, Mayor. Can we just summarize where the goals are not being met by this application, please?
Sure. Mayor, Councilor Irvin. So the applicable statewide planning goals for this application are goals 1, 2, 3, and that would be citizen involvement, land use planning, agricultural lands. Goal 4 is forest lands. These are fairly boilerplate items for most comprehensive plan amendment applications. For the goals 4 or goals 3 and 4, there's within city limits, it's not very common to have agricultural lands or forest lands. So that's goals 3 and 4. So those ones are satisfied. Natural resources, it is right along the trail, the Round River Trail. The goal, the unfortunate part for this, as far as meeting the goal, is to put things along those natural resources, those community amenities that benefit the community. So in industrial use, while Mr. Payne states that he wants to do mini storage, which would otherwise be a fairly innocuous use, once it's zoned industrial, it can be any industrial use. And so, you know, that could be something with 50, 60, 100 trucks an hour, UPS facility, something like that. I mean, and it could detract from the natural amenities or the open space amenity of the trail. So that's how that goal was determined to not be met. Air, water quality. There's no capacity issues as stated, but there was no information provided by the applicant in this case to substantiate a goal 6 finding. Goal 7, subject to natural disasters. This one again is a fairly boilerplate. There's nothing special about it. It does meet that particular goal requirement. It's only susceptible to earthquake, which the whole city is, things like that. It's not in a landslide area or a floodplain. Recreational needs, no information was provided about how this would enhance any recreational need for the community. Goal 9, economic development. In this case, we actually have a city adopted document. That's the 2009 economic opportunities analysis. No, there was not at that time, and it's our guiding document at this moment stating that we needed additional industrial lands of this small size. So it would make it not compliant with the adopted economic element of our comprehensive plan. Housing, regarding housing, the applicant failed to demonstrate how removing this 2.58 acres from a fairly centrally located part of town would benefit the housing supply in the city of Cottage Grove. In fact, at 2.58 acres, it's taking away the potential for up to a minimum of 20 dwellings on that property. So that would be a failure in meeting that particular standard. Goal 11, the change would be considered to be or meet it because it is already served by public facilities, water, sewer, storm, transportation. The applicant, under goal 12, the applicant did provide TPR analysis showing that the proposed use for industrial storage or self-service storage, excuse me, would generate fewer trips, but that doesn't demonstrate what the highest best use of an industrial land could do, as I mentioned with my generic example of the UPS hub, where you've got many vehicles coming and going every day between two other or three, essentially in a residential neighborhood already. Energy conservation. There's dwellings on the property that would likely need to be removed for the industrial use. And so this is not putting people where services are. It would be taking housing away from where services are needed. So it's not considered to be an energy conservation factor either. Urbanization is already within the urban growth boundary and in the city limits of Cottage Grove, and it can't be served. It's not in compliance though with goal 14 because of the negative effect on livability as a component of urbanization. Then non-applicable goals, the remainder of statewide planning goals 15 through 19.
Counselor Flack.
Madam Mayor, I wonder if it'd be appropriate to ask Mr. Payne. So the way land use decisions work, we have to have findings of fact. So what the planner just read are those findings. And so for us to approve this application, we would have to be able to say that those findings are now met as opposed to the many ones that are not. And so I guess I just wanted to ask you again, because the mayor had asked if we had any questions. Do you have any information for us to help us?
Well, I have not done a thorough layout of what needs to be done. I have told the city many times that I was planning on many warehouses. I'm not changing my mind from that. That's what my whole point of doing this whole land zoning change was, for many warehouses. There was last year, I think Eric told me there was 240 in the last couple of years, new units that went in here in Cottage Grove, and not a one of them had a garage, no place to store stuff. And it is one of the things that I think is very, I've tried to find a mini storage unit, and you can't even find one in Crestville, and so somewhere you have to go, and you're going to have people going out of town. And I just think it would be so much simpler to have something here that's readily available. And that's what I'm after.
Thank you.
Counselor Urban.
Feel free to keep me in bounds if this is not for this, but is there a more appropriate zoning that would accomplish these goals? Because a number of the things I was hearing was what could happen under this zoning, which would be a detriment to the goals and likely why they weren't found. But there's other types of commercial that could allow for this particular type of use, or maybe has that been explored?
Mayor, Councilor Urban. So the other zone in the city of Cottage Grove that would allow for self-service storage is our general commercial or community commercial zone. It is a conditionally permitted use. However, I would state though that still comes with some of those highest best use problems, because it could potentially then become a gas station or a fast food restaurant with a drive-through. And so when looking at those adjacent abutting uses in the existing outlay of the neighborhood and the continuity of our comprehensive plan in whole, as far as the land use designation, it would still be a pretty significant hill to climb in order to make findings to support even just a community commercial zoning at that point. Staff did encourage Mr. Payne on more than one occasion that to proceed with this, he would benefit from contracting with a land use specialist of some kind, whether that be an attorney or planner, to help him navigate some of this more technical end of things. Because at the end of the day, we want our applicants to be successful. It's unfortunate when they're not.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Counselor Mary Day? Or-
So it's my understanding that the planning commission did recommend not to make this thing. So we would actually be going against our own commission.
Mayor, Councilor Mary Day, that is correct.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions of staff? 7:57. I will now close this public hearing. Consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Will now provide opportunity for members of the public appearing in person or virtually to comment on one or more of the following action items after the staff report and prior to council discussion on an item, except on items for which a public hearing was or is scheduled to be held. Citizen comment time or any action item will not exceed 10 minutes cumulatively and will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker or less as determined by the presiding officer. Comments should not repeat prior comments, must address the specific item, and cannot be used for additional discussion of other agenda actions. Item A, resolution declaring surplus real property and authorization for sale to Sharkey Properties LLC. Staff report by Mr. Mongan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council has held a public hearing to solicit public comment regarding designating the property located at 79030 Thornton Lane as surplus and to accept the offer made by Sharkey Properties LLC in the amount of $325,000. It is now appropriate for the council to consider the attached draft resolution declaring the property surplus and to authorize the city manager to sign the necessary documents to complete the sale of said property to Sharkey Properties LLC in the amount of $325,000. Notice of the public hearing was advertised in the Sentinel on May 1st. Council held the public hearing this evening on May 13th, 2024. Staff is recommending approval.
Resolution number
2135.
Councilor Irvin.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the council pass resolution or adopt resolution 2135 to declare the property at 79030 Thornton Lane surplus and to authorize the city manager to sign the relevant documents in support of the property sale to Sharkey Properties LLC.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Savage. Aye. Counselor Fleck.
Aye.
Counselor Stennett.
Aye.
Counselor Dreer. Aye. Counselor Merriday.
Aye.
Counselor Irvin.
Aye.
Mayor Soulsby.
Aye. Unanimous. Resolution declaring surplus real property and authorization for sale to Ernest Olson Jr. Staff report by Mr. Mongan.
Thank you, Mayor. Council has held the public hearing to solicit comment regarding designating the property located at the corner of Sweet Lane and South R Street or Lot 14 of the first addition to the Cottage Grove Industrial Park as surplus and accept the offer made by Ernest Olson Jr. in the amount of $632,164.50. It is now appropriate for council to consider the attached draft resolution to declare the property surplus and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary documents to complete the sale to Mr. Olson. Notice of the public hearing was advertised in the Sentinel on May 1st, 2024, and the public hearing was held this evening, May 13th, 2024. Staff is recommending approval.
Counselor Irvin.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the council adopt resolution 2136, declaring the property at the corner of Sweet Lane and South R Street, Lot 14, in the first addition to the Cottage Grove Industrial Park surplus, and authorize the city manager to sign the relevant documents in support of the property sale to Ernest Olson Jr.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Madam Mayor. Oh, quick question. if I
Discussion,
could.
sorry.
Mr. Mongan, I'd ask some questions because the note describing the payment process wasn't very clear. Would you kind of run over that again real quick?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Fleck. So Mr. Olson, he had put down some notes there as the attached document shows regarding his plan to cover the $632,000. See, I just got a copy here real quick. At that time, he was, I guess you could say, pending the sale of two properties. One of those properties is already closed, and he's now in the position to put down $175,000 as his first payment. He's pending the close of his second property any day now. And so I would recommend that with the purchase and sale agreement to be put together by the city attorney, that there be a 90-day window for him to close that out without having to become the first on any other properties or anything like that.
Thank you.
Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Merity,
Aye.
Counselor Stennett,
Aye.
Counselor Irvin,
Aye.
Counselor Fleck,
Aye.
Counselor Savage,
Aye.
Counselor Dreer. Aye. Mayor Soulsby.
Aye. Unanimous. First vote for ordinance amending the Cottage Grove Municipal Code regarding various sections of Title 14. Staff report by Mr. Mongan.
Thank you again, Mayor. Council has held the public hearing on the proposed amendments to various sections of Title 14 of the Cottage Grove Municipal Code. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the attached ordinance on May 20, 2024, and recommended approval to council. It is now appropriate that council consider the ordinance. This ordinance has been available for more than 1 week prior to this meeting, and staff is recommending adoption. This ordinance could be adopted in one meeting.
Any questions?
The ordinance number will be 3181.
Counselor Irvin.
Thank you, Mayor. Move that the council adopt ordinance 3181.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? Counselor Fleck.
Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and support this. I mean, 99% of it I really love. I will be honest, the reason I remember that one item, because that was the one that made me a little uncomfortable. You know, and I'm trying to remember, what is was it 10 foot is the narrowest front setback in a zone, or was it 5? I'm trying to remember.
Mayor, Councilor Fleck, it's 5 foot in an R2 zone, correct?
So my fear, you know, is that in itself being 5 feet back, you know, from the front property line, aesthetically and or, you know, from neighbor conflict could be a concern. I don't think that's going to be an issue, so I'm going to support it, but I would like us to kind of pay attention if that does become a problem in the past. One of the other things I asked about on Friday was around the going to 5 foot fences in the front yard instead of 4. I don't remember a planning commissioner or a counselor when we went from 2.5 to 4. And at the time, there was a lot of conversation around, you know, people backing out of their driveway and kids riding by it on a sidewalk and the vision. And you had mentioned that there's actually a vision clearance triangle on people's front yards as well as on streets. Could you describe that a little bit for me?
Yes, Mayor, Councilor Fleck. So I was just gonna pull it up in the code so I could cite the section, but there is a section though for driveways as a type of intersection requiring vision clearance to be adhered to. I believe it's a 10-foot triangle though versus the 20-foot that you have at an intersection. Much like an alley setup is 10-foot.
So, and I guess one recommendation as we're codifying this, maybe in that table, have a reference to that, just so that folks know, if they're looking at our code that, oh, there's a vision clearance expectation around this. I think that would be really a good thing to help point people the right direction.
I suppose if there was an amended motion, we could add that bit of language to C section, blah, blah, blah. Excuse the blah, blah, blah. It's like Jake thing there. C section, vision triangle. I don't have it off the top of my head, so I apologize.
The motioner will take a shot. I would amend my motion to adopt ordinance 3181 to include an amendment to the section that references the vision to the height adjustments of the fences in the front to reference the safety triangle.
And the second,
section.
and the second agrees with that amendment. Does that sound okay? Okay, thank you so much.
So we have a first and a second.
Yes, let me look it up here. Mhm. Yes.
That is acceptable.
Thank you.
All right. So is there any more discussion? All right. Councilor Irvin.
I would just note that we did have a discussion about those in between 2 dwelling unit, 3 and the cottage cluster. Since it wasn't addressed in this presentation, I figured I'd bring it up in the concerns of council, but I did mention it in the agenda session with regard to this. So we'll fast forward to the concerns of council to address that. Thanks.
Anyone else? We have a first and a second. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Merida,
Aye.
Counselor Fleck,
Hi.
Counselor Savage,
Aye.
Counselor Irvin,
Aye.
Counselor Dreer,
Aye.
Counselor Stemmett,
Aye.
Mayor Soulsby.
Aye. Unanimous. Item D. First vote for ordinance amending the Cottage Grove Comprehensive Plan Land Use Diagram, map and title 14 Land Use District Map for 2352 and 2416 East Whitaker Avenue, map 20-03-27-32 TLS 02300 and 00801 MCPA 1-22. Staff report by Mr. Mongan.
Thank you, Mayor. Council has held a public hearing on the proposed amendment of the comprehensive plan land use map and title 14 of the Cottage Grove Development Code land use district map to redesignate 2.58 acres of land owned by Clayton Payne at 2352 and 2416 East Whitaker Avenue from the current M medium density residential designation and R2 multifamily residential zoning to I industrial designation and M industrial zoning. Planning Commission held a public hearing on the attached ordinance on March 20th, 2024, and did not recommend approval to council. It is now appropriate that council consider the attached draft ordinance. However, if council wishes to adopt the ordinance, staff requests that the item be continued to a future date so that staff can work with the applicant on to see if we can get closer on findings or make findings that would satisfy statewide planning goals and the comprehensive plan. Staff is not recommending adoption of this ordinance. However, it has been available for more than 1 week and technically could be adopted in one meeting.
Counselor Flack.
So a process question for our planner or our attorney. Is the appropriate way, if we do not want to support this, to just let it die for lack of a motion? Or I was going to say, should we move and second and then actually I'll vote nay?
I would prefer, at least to clarify for purposes of appeal, that there be a final decision rendered or a decision, a local final decision. So motion with a second and then however council wishes to vote.
Quasi judicial. Madam Mayor, I'll move that ordinance number 3182 be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Any more discussion? Counselor Urban.
Thank you, Mayor. I just recognize that I agree it is an unfortunate position for someone to be in, to go through that amount of effort and have this be the result. And I guess I would just encourage, what I'm seeing is the detriments here. We need housing. This is prime potential, housing stock. And I think this gets to a different question that was raised previously, which is what available lands does the city have? Is there a potential for a land swap? It's something that we could, meet all desired outcomes and, have a satisfying result in the end would be my encouragement.
Counselor Black.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I feel for the applicant, I mean, this is unfortunate. A lot of folks will want to, utilize their property, and I totally get that. The problem is it needs to be compatible use, to be able to change that. And land use, as those who've been around it know, is very complicated. And so those findings have to establish that, yep, this is an acceptable change of use. And, clearly we're not at that point. And so I will be voting no on this and encouraging the applicant to either look for other property or other uses.
Anyone else? Do we have a motion? Okay, we did motion in second. All right. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Dreer,
Nay.
Counselor Merity,
Nay.
Counselor Stennett,
Nay.
Counselor Urban,
Nay.
Counselor Fleck,
Nay.
Counselor Savage,
Nay.
Mayor Soulsby.
Nay. Thank you. Okay. Business from the City Council. Item A, street improvement and funding update. Staff report by Mr. Fay Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council. So this item is an update on our street funding effort. On April 8th, 2024, the City Council received a recommendation from the Ad Hoc Street Improvement and Funding Committee. And this is an update of efforts to date. On April 10th, I was able to meet with Lane County's Governmental Affairs Manager to discuss the potential of working together, partnering on a state legislative bill that would allow Cottage Grove and Lane County to create a voter-approved road maintenance and improvement district. This was one of the recommendations in from the committee. I also had the opportunity to speak at a luncheon with Mr. Mokrahysky, who is the Lane County Administrator, and he indicated that he was willing to discuss the idea further. On April 16th, Mr. Sauerwein and myself met with legal counsel, Ms. Conley, to discuss the committee recommendations regarding the gas tax increase, street repair bond levy, local improvement districts, and transportation utility fee. Ms. Conley provided a draft resolution referring the question of a 6 cents gas tax increase. So we have a prepared resolution that council could consider. We recommend that we actually would not take action on this until later in the year when we get closer to the filing deadlines, so that allow city staff to work on factual information before it actually gets presented to the elections office. She also has reviewed the local improvement district Cottage Grove Municipal Code, Chapter 7.04, and is recommending that at the time prior to potentially creating an LID for street improvements, that we would update our code to bring it into alignment with state law. We also discussed the transportation utility fee and the differences between the LID, and Ms. Conley recommended staff meet with, excuse me, that's the next question. So there are some clear differences between the two potentials, the LID and the transportation utility fee. One of them is that the transportation utility fee, you can create the district and it can be implemented probably quicker than the process to create an LID, but they're very similar in the way they would appropriate or the way they would actually go about the adjoining property owners paying to pay for those improvements. And then we also discussed the potential bond measure, and that's when Mrs. Conley recommended that we talked with Golgan Uger, she's bond counsel, regarding placing the question on the ballot regarding street improvement general obligation bond levy. On April 25th, Finance Director Likens and myself met with, did a phone conference with Ms. Uger and Matt Donahue to discuss the street improvement bond levy similar to the city of Eugene and Springfield's. On April 26th, Ms. Uger shared with staff a draft resolution and supporting documentation from other ballot measures for past street funding efforts. Mr. Donahue is calculating, and once he's completed his analysis of a 50 cent per thousand property tax measure and what it would generate and what the necessary debt service would be over a 5-year time frame, he's going to provide that information with me, and then I'll give another in a future update. I'll provide that information to City Council once it's received. And lastly, I've made contact with Jake Pelroy with Pelroy and Associates. Council members might remember Mr. Pelroy. He made a presentation to our ad hoc street committee about providing us, the city, with a proposal to help create factual information and documents that the city can share with city residents once the measure gets placed. The measure or measures get placed on the ballot, and I'm still waiting for his proposal. He is working on it. So that's my update to date. Are there any questions on the update?
Councilor Urban.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Stewart, for all of that follow-up work since we've passed the direction. I am curious what had been discovered about the transportation utility district. I know that was kind of an unknown. It's this possibility that that might be able to draw the lines discretionarily or through the approval process, but you're saying that there's something more linked with the LIDs as far as how property owners might go about paying. Are they more similar than we had discussed in our committee meetings, or what can you add to that?
So Mayor, Councilor Urban, so if I understand the question, we might be talking about two different things. The transportation utility fee would be a fee. So we create a district, like hypothetically on Gateway, and we would, for that stretch of road, potentially from the Row River to Harvey, if council wanted to create that district, we would create that small district around there and appropriate resources or determine the cost based on their trips analysis and based on what the costs are, and the appropriate, each one would pay a utility fee for that. The limited improvement district is one where we create, we take a street, we create all the properties that are adjacent to it, find out once again what the project would cost, and then we would appropriate the repayment based on each property based on their footage adjoining the project, and also over a certain period of time, might be 10, 15, 20 years, whatever the council chose to move forward with. In regards to a transportation utility district, that would our understanding to date is the city doesn't have the ability to create a transportation service district or maintenance district. And that's the one we talked about partnering with Lane County to use a common boundary, hypothetically, like the school district boundary, and then determine what type of a method, hypothetically, for raising generated revenue might be a per vehicle charge that of registered vehicles in that district. And so that one would definitely need to some sort of legislative authority be passed at the legislature to create that. We have researched, and Mr. Kyler shared with me that there are county service districts that exist, and the county could create a service district, but it would be under the county's drive and their purpose. And really what Cottage Grove is looking for is a fix for our streets, not necessarily trying to solve a county issue. So it would, if we could create a transportation service district, as I've discussed, then the city and Lane County could actually be partners in it and work together instead of essentially the county passing a service district and then giving us some funds based on that service district. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, that was clarifying. I must have heard something slightly off on, but it also sounded like our LID might not be where it needs to be and needs modification in its current form. Is that correct?
Mayor, Councilor Urban, I believe that's the case. Ms. Conley's looked at our adopted city code for LIDs, and there seems to be a couple or a few things that might be different from state law. So we would want to review that before we actually use that vehicle to create a district and go out. So just to determine, make sure that our code is compliant with the state law.
And along those lines, I know some of the discussion in those ad hoc meetings was in relation to the LIDs was how do we promote one, it's a big lift for the city anytime when one would want to be set up because of all the information that would have to be put together on the scope of that project for however many participants there are, but to try to streamline that so it's easy to get into, easier for residents, but also we had talked about potentially having a kind of a help fund that would help people get to that decision to supplement potentially some of those costs. Maybe I know that was just one of the concepts that was coming up, but I know we're coming up to budget season, and that might be difficult, but I don't know if that would impact how that piece of code is looked at. But perhaps when that's being addressed and getting it up to the standard it needs to be at, that could be a further discussion.
Yeah, so just to clarify, my recollection is there wasn't anything that was necessarily legally deficient. It was that we wanted to provide you with more flexibility and some more options that are pretty standard in other communities. And I'm not remembering exactly because it was a little bit of, I didn't review that advice before attending this meeting, but just overall, if you wanted to forge ahead, you could. It was just my recommendation to jump through a ordinance, a code update, which wouldn't take very long if an LID was actually desired.
Councilor Flack.
Yeah, we actually had the Johnson LID when I was first getting involved in city government back in the early 2000s. And actually there's also, you have to have at least 50% of the folks that are in that area willing to do it or have a non-remonstrance agreement. Otherwise it doesn't happen. And the discussion I remember here talking about wasn't about us subsidizing, but carrying the note effectively. I mean, these people have X period of time to pay that back. That's city resources that have to be obligated for that amount of time, was more the way I was looking at that.
I understood it that it wasn't payback until the sale of the home.
And that could be one of the triggers, absolutely.
Any others? Councilor Merida.
Yes, I just want to show my appreciation to Public Work Director Stewart for the follow through, because I know you've done an awfully lot in conducting this mission to improve our streets. And this is the follow through that's going to make it happen. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Concerns of council. Counselor Flack.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So had two meetings last week. The first one was the Lane Area Commission on Transportation. I had come to city, the Public Works and Development staff for proposed 5 projects that we wanted to do if funding just happened to become available. And so we are now formalizing, they now want a top 1. And so I've reached out again to staff, and we have a top project that we're sharing with them. And I want to thank them because this has actually been quite a lift. And so I really appreciate their willingness to, try to help projects. It's a bike pedestrian project that we're proposing. Who knows if there'll be funding or if we'll rise to the top, but that'll be the next step for that commission, is to put its recommendations, which will ultimately go to the Oregon Transportation Commission to see whether or not we actually get some funding. Second meeting was Lane Regional Air Protection Agency. As a board member, we were tasked with finding a new executive director. I'm happy to announce that we have selected Travis Knutson, who had been the PR and media person for the agency. He will, effective immediately, as the new director. I'm happy. I think he will do a great job. So just wanted to give that announcement. Thank you.
Counselor Savage.
Thank you so much, Mayor. As I like to do when I attend League of Oregon Cities meetings, I brought back my report. I won't read you the whole report, but if you want it, I'll submit it for public record. But just some highlights. On Wednesday, I actually had a board meeting and learned that the League of Oregon Cities is potentially partnering up with the Coraggio Group to provide long-term strategic planning cohort classes. So if you were to reach out to Coraggio Group and do this on your own as a city, it would be $14,000-15,000. And being a part of this cohort with the League of Oregon Cities, it reduces that cost by 50%. So there's more information on that coming. And along with that, there's another group that could potentially provide a grant. So there's no out-of-pocket cost. So I've passed that information on to our city manager if that's something that we want to look into. Thursday, I attended a bunch of classes. We had a counselor's workshop with breakfast regarding mental health awareness. We talked about what does mental health in the United States look like. 1 in 5 adults live with mental illness. 1 in 20 live with a severe mental illness. The 3 most common are substance use, anxiety, and depression. We hit bullet points like what is a mental health disorder? What is the impact of mental health on individuals? The general mental health signs and symptoms. We talked about suicide, where they pointed out that over 46,000 people in the United States die by suicide every year, whereas homicides are at 24,000. So these are data points from 2020. They said firearms are used for more suicides than homicides. We talked about exploring strategies for supporting others. What does that look like? How can you support somebody? Supporting your employees, how to have a conversation with somebody experiencing mental health issues, how you can make the impact, types of self-care, creating new habits, and taking care of you is taking care of others. So that was a really interesting session. We had a keynote speaker, Policing with Compassion during the addiction crisis. The speaker was, and Councilor Irvin, you may have to remind me, he's the sheriff from Marion County. And he was fascinating to listen to. He was talking about his LEAD program, LEAD, and he talked about how that's working in Marion County and partnering with law enforcement, the court system, and also service providers. So if you think of each of those different groups as a circle and then intertwining those different circles, and that is his program for LEAD. He works through stability, treatment, accountability, bettering livability and engagement. So that all spells stable. Then we had a wildfire resilience and community risk reduction session where we talked about how the costly disasters are increasing. U.S. wildfires losses are growing. There's an increased wildfire risk. We talked about Senate Bill 82. What can consumers do, such as talk to your insurance company, seek out detailed information about decisions, how the insurance company makes their decisions on how they're going to insure your properties, shop around, ask for discounts. We had public safety and financing levies, fees, and contracts session. The utility service fee is the most popular option. There's 50 plus cities in Oregon who have implemented this fee. In 2019, it was reported that 26% of fees involved financing into public safety and helping public safety. We had an update for the city of Grants Pass versus Johnson, but I don't know if you were going to speak to that, Counselor Irvin, because I didn't write a whole lot in my notes. I wrote some, but I figured I'd let you take the lead on that one because you had mentioned it on agenda session. We had an agency directors roundtable, and this is really fascinating. We had all of these folks in one room, and we broke out into 3 different sections, and the presenters moved around the room in sections. So we had 9 different people: Amelia Portfield from Regional Solutions, the Office of Governor Tina Kotek, Dud Woodcock, an acting director from Oregon Water Resources Department, Palmer Mason, a senior policy advisor from the Department of Land, Conservation and Development. We had Lindsay Baker, an assistant director with the Government of External Relations, the Oregon Department of Transportation, ODOT. We had somebody from ODOT live and in the flesh. Andrea Bell, Director, Housing, Oregon Housing and Community Services, Ed Tabor, Infrastructure and Program Services Director from Business Oregon. And the most fascinating one to me is Craig Flarrell. He's a captain with the Oregon State Police. And when he was talking, I wanted to just visit with him. And I identified myself. I'm Chalice from Cottage Grove, and he stopped me in my tracks. And he says, "You have the best police chief ever. Chief Chase, you were called out by name. Chief Chase is amazing." And he sung your praises. So I just thought that was absolutely remarkable that he not only 1 had heard of Cottage Grove, but 2 identified you, Chief Chase, by name before I could even ask my question. So kudos to you for being amazing, according to the Oregon State Police. So that was pretty cool. We had an Oregon Housing and Community Services resource update. Different groups were talking about what they do to provide services, what services they provide, and how that looks. We had leveraging regional coordination to meet Oregon housing goals as a general session and lunch on Friday. We had some great speakers. They talked about different pilot programs for House Bill 4213 and how the emergency homelessness response has been in reaction to that. So it was a really great couple of days. I learned a lot, and we'll submit my report to the city recorder to put into public record. So there's that. They always have folks trying to get your attention. You know, they're service providers, they're CIS, they're different companies that partner with cities. So I always get excited when I see the playground equipment. So here's a new playground equipment book with new information. And I talked with these folks, Field Essentials Core in Maine, and they were talking about how their chemicals that they are able to sell to cities are really, really good deal. So I don't know if they can beat the deal that we have currently, but I brought those back and there's a business card in there as well. So hopefully they can beat the prices. I know everything's gone up, so it doesn't hurt to do research. And then lastly, we're coming upon June as Pride Month. And last year we were called out for not having done anything in recognition for Pride Month. I briefly was able to talk with Mayor Soulsby on Friday and asked if we could do something, a proclamation in recognition of June being for Pride Month. And so I would like to put forth a motion that we have a proclamation acknowledging Pride Month and folks in our community.
That's a motion?
Yeah, I would like to have that as a motion, if that's acceptable, or direction to put it on the May 28th meeting to be read just prior to June, or to be in the agenda prior to June.
Second.
I guess I'd like guidance of that. Is that how that works?
Well, generally speaking, under the rules that were adopted by the council, I don't have a set of them in front of me. The council agenda is, determined and set just for efficiency's sake with the mayor, the city manager, and the city recorder. Having said that, if council members want to present a motion, they can certainly present a motion.
Councilor Flack.
So I certainly support all citizens, and I guess I'm not opposed. I just also worry, I think that these sorts of things really should be vetted and go through the process. I feel a little, it's a tough one because obviously this is nationally a pretty polarizing issue, and this council certainly seen a lot of polarization. But I do support all people, whether I agree or disagree with them. So I am not opposed. I just wish this would have come to us a little differently.
I've done a little soul searching on this as well. And my feeling is moving forward with proclamations. I would like to, my personal opinion is, as Councilor Fleck said, I do support all people. But as mayor, I would like proclamations to have the city be city focused from now on. Like I would like to not have as many proclamations moving forward. If it's public safety, if it's anything to do with the city, I would like to keep it there so that we are not overwhelmed with proclamations. So that's my opinion on it. Anyone else? We have a motion and a second. I guess all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries. Any other concerns of council? Councilor Meriden.
Thank you, Mayor. Concerning our unhoused work session on Saturday, we will not be taking comments, as was pointed out, that was not my original intention, but I'm happy for any gathering where we can talk and do business about this large problem in our community. So I would like to propose, my idea would be to put butcher paper all around the room on the walls so everybody could write down things as it occurred to them, or make suggestions or rant or whatever with a magic marker. But that probably might be distracting for the session. So I would recommend that we provide comment cards or other forms of material that citizens can give us their input or feedback or suggestions at the unhoused work session on Saturday. On Thursday, I will be attending the Lane Workforce Council Executives Board and session. Also, on Thursday is the Cottage Grove Community Development Corporation sponsored business challenge. That's one of their our main focuses, and both Councilor Dreyer and myself represent the city on this committee. So that will be, the number of applicants have gone through a training and development to form their business model and will be pitching them at this event. And in the competition is prize money that will be used to start up their business. I also would like to comment on Ms. Z's critique of the vacant fee, but I don't want to steal our city manager's presentation, so I will reserve those comments for when that item appears on the agenda. Thank you.
Councilor Urban.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a report from the Lane Economic Committee meeting today. Barely made it. Was coming back from a nice Mother's Day at the coast. So we showed up about 2 minutes before the meeting started, but alas was able to be a part of it. And I was glad I was, because there was time there's going to be a renew of our community economic development strategy, the document that kind of sets forth, here's what we're doing as a region, and to try to get alignment with the EDA, Economic Development Administration, federal, to bring funds in. So it was neat to hear from all the representatives on the board about what projects are coming up, and to learn a little bit more from their experience about how to best position this region to leverage that. I thought it was interesting, I think Matt Michaels from the city of Anita had the experience with this, and he was able to share the link. Because I thought, well, maybe the EDA has like some criteria listed. Here are our priority areas. Here how you can connect. But no, there's really nothing like that. So he said that the strategy a lot of times is looking. There's a page. I think it's a very simple URL. It's like eda.gov/grants. That you take it off of what they've been awarding grants to, basically, and say that seems to be what they're into. And he said it's quite a politically driven kind of process about what they're looking at. So that was educational. Mentioned a few of the things that we have going on here. Acknowledgement on the Main Street project, and some of the other projects that we're hoping to do. Renewal. There was good discussion with the economic development position holder at the city of Springfield, and how their goal, is looking 10, 15 years ahead. Right now, I'm saying we need to maximize our tax base. So how do we do that within our code efficiently? And so I think anyone who's been through Springfield, has seen a lot of development downtown. Some of it's going up. They're cleaning up. They're developing plans for the Glenwood area. And so I'm interested to learn more as they go through that process, how they're identifying projects and how we can think about our natural assets here, and cultural, and all the assets that Cottage Grove has to develop our economy. Mentorship programs. This has been coming up on my mind from a number of different angles. I perceive a gap in mentorship. I did mention it on the LEC meeting today, and others said, yeah, it seems to have dropped off in the last 10 years, but there is collaborative. there you run the meeting. There's a group working on it in Lane County. That I can go back to the minutes and probably have that. That is trying to bolster mentorship programs as it relates to industry, to get businesses connected with youth, to kind of show them this is what working here looks like. This is what you might want to be studying or focus on. So I was encouraged by that, but I thought as a council, maybe we could direct staff to solicit a survey of mentorship programs in and around Cottage Grove, and I'd love to hear presentations about who's getting served, what's the efficacy, where are the gaps in mentorship. In some of the conversations I was having, the idea of we have smart reading, start making a reader today program, but how about some math tutoring and engaging folks. There's a lot of folks who are retired that are looking for things to do, looking to pour into the community, but would like to at least start with where are we, and then hopefully we can move forward from there. Want to bring up the citywide cleanup again. I know the city was kind of cleaned up from one perspective, and the tree limbs that had fallen, and that's great, but this would be more on the otherwise blighted properties. I'm sure Eric would also help be appreciative. The grass is growing. We can coordinate. I don't know how to do that as just an individual, other than just go out and knock on doors and try to weed whack. But getting together as a community and lining up garbage bins. We could talk to Garland. I don't know, the garbage service, and see what we can do. But I think I want to revive that energy and at least figure out how to do that. So in response to our speaker representative from Safeway, that reminded me early on, I had the intention of going to the different business owners and asking if they're keeping stats on their losses just in town. This was when we were in an information famine in the police department, but I also know that a lot of that goes unreported, and the trend of not reporting that because there's a belief that nothing's going to happen is real. So go, and I think we have a business registry at one point the city did, or I don't know how we would get that information to contact the different businesses, but I'm very interested in understanding, what kind of losses have you been experiencing? Do you report this? Do you have the confidence to report this or not? I think that would be important. I think that's important for us to make decisions, even for this weekend. In the budget review in the budget review, two different types of goals, distinct from the council goals, concepts kind of came up. So there's the budget goals, like the budget policy, what we're trying to achieve. So I still want to have that conversation, and I know that's going to come up pretty soon. So I have been kind of thinking through those things. I have a lot of questions written out on the budget. Should be a fun week. But then also, and I talked to Mr. Sauerwein about this today, when it comes to the judge, there was, in the org chart of the budget, it talks about what their objectives are, like what are they supposed to be doing? And it was instituting community values. I thought, okay, well, how would he know what our community values are? Like, where are those articulated? Community values. And that's kind of important for enforcement. So I'm pretty sure they don't exist anywhere, like on paper. So that would be one of those other things that we should hash out, I think, as a council, to say, these are our community values. This is kind of the expectation for, to uphold as a judge in our, or, to pair with the legal landscape law, and as much discretion as there exists there. And I'm not sure how much that is. Lastly, building code. So I'm not sure how this, if that was even in that section. I was trying to look for where that might be, but there exists what I perceive as a gap in opening up available housing units, and that is between a 2 dwelling unit on a single family property and a third So like, say you have a duplex, that's two, even though that would technically be multi, I don't know what that'd be, single, okay. And then, then you want an ADU. Well, you can't, that's not allowable in our code right now. And that's a real way to get more dwelling units. But you could do you could do a cottage cluster. So in the agenda session meeting, there was going to be a question about what is the legal definition? Where's the definition of cottage cluster set? Could we lower that to 3, or do we have to address, the single family dwelling limits on whatever other section code that is? So that was one. And then another conversation just about the principles of building codes, I think, as it relates to something I'm going through right now with a shared fence with a neighbor. About this, I think, are they setback regulations or they setback structure from lot lines? It sounds like there's, it's about preserving viewability, the visible, looking out, quality of life kind of thing. And then accessibility for emergency first responders, police, fire, and whoever else. There are certainly cases where neither of those are negatively impacted, but there's no route for an exception that I'm aware of at this time. So I would, if the council is agreeable, say, hey, can we address that area of code and bring that back to council to see if there's a change that can be made there. So those are my items. Thanks. Sorry, you called me out twice. Their Grants Pass versus Johnson. So we did have a presentation by the legal counsel for, I don't know who that gentleman was with, but an attorney that was giving, kind of a recap. So I think it was the night before, the day before, hours before, the Supreme Court heard the oral arguments for the submitting of the case to be heard, Grants Pass versus Johnson. I think I listened to it 3 times that night before, and it was very, very interesting. What stood out to me, and it was, I think, confirmed, it was nice just to then have an attorney actually speak about it the next morning, was they, was it the petitioner? Johnson, the petitioner? The one arguing for upholding the Ninth Circuit's decision, started the arguments by saying, hey, there are tons of options that cities have to manage homelessness. And even listing the just restrictions, that there isn't even a mandate to have structures, that there's not all that. And it was quite a contrast from, as this was all developing, the landscape I think we're making decisions in. So I do think that there's been a shift, or at least in the arguments, about, hey, what is possible? And I think this is evidenced by Portland's new ordinance, Lebanon's. There's other ones that are coming up. Sure, there might be some challenges, but I think it lays the foundation that there is a difference in what is it's doable, but also, Oregon's unique. So we have, even if things do get overturned, we are going to still have 3115. I believe there was another that kind of bounds it, but still, and yet some of the things that are getting challenges, he said, are issues surrounding ADA violations. So when people with disabilities can't access public spaces because there's encampments, and they can't move around, that's an issue that is being, things are being challenged on. We heard the state created danger, the public health issues, and really being a public health crisis in many ways. And just there's competing orders. I think I have the city of Phoenix to review what they've done in their orders, but there can be conflicts between, hey, we can't remove certain thing, and how do we enforce our nuisance ordinances? So that's still being hashed out, but we do now have some additional ordinances to look at, and depending on what happens with the case, I don't think we actually have any further definition of objectively reasonable, unfortunately. But final note, there seems to be a lot in terms of the questions that the justices were asking on what is status, what is conduct. That seems to be a huge subject matter. You know, is homelessness a status? They were questioning that, and then really what is reasonable. The definition of a community was coming into question. You know, proximity. Is it by name? Is it within proximity? Is it based on, you know, someone's access to a shelter in or out of community? So what happens if there's a shelter in an adjacent community? Is it reasonable to expect someone to go there? So a lot of interesting questions being posed by the justice on the receiving of the case, and I guess we'll look forward to hearing. I don't know when the decision, if they have it scheduled yet. They haven't scheduled yet. Just so thank you.
Anyone else? Counselor Flack.
I want to thank Councilor Irvin for reminder that on Wednesday, the grass height requirements go into effect. And I would love it if the city would put that on Friday update and have our media folks in the room, you know, give a reminder to folks that that grass height has to be under a foot Wednesday. And I know that this is going to catch a lot of folks by surprise because this is what the second year we've done it in May instead of June. So I'd love for us to get that reminder out.
I just have something really quick. I'm part of the Oregon Mayors Association, and I've been on the committee planning for the July meeting. And I was excited to hear that Sherry Stewart is going to be a keynote speaker, and she's the National Main Street in charge of the Main Street programs. And so I'm going to meet with her on Monday and kind of hash out what is important to our city and other cities in Oregon moving forward. And so with our Main Street project, that's kind of an exciting thing. I know we're behind schedule, so we're going to go ahead and move on if no one else has anything. Business from the city manager.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the City Council. Just a couple of quick items. First, dealing with vacant property registration. This is really just a follow-up to our previous discussion. Council had asked if we could find some examples from other cities and how they had dealt with the issue of vacant buildings in their downtown. And the city attorney was good enough to direct me to the city of Veneta, which predominantly uses their ordinance for residential properties rather than commercial properties. But I think it's a good starting point for our discussion. And let me be very clear about this. This is the beginning of a conversation, guys. There's nothing in front of you that we're asking you to approve. And as I noted in the memo that I sent out earlier, going forward, I'm definitely going to be talking with the folks in the Chamber of Commerce, talking with our downtown businesses, because this obviously affects them directly. But this is definitely an issue that other cities have wrestled with as much as Cottage Grove has. Also talked with some folks in the city of Pendleton. And, you know, going forward, I think this is a really good model for us to start with. And with that, I take any comments you may have. I know some council members, this is a very important issue to them.
Councilor Dreher.
Thank you, Mayor. What's the definition of vacant?
That's a good question. I think that there's a definition listed in the ordinance that I provided. But you know, it's certainly something I think individual cities could create for themselves. I kind of defer to the city attorney on that.
Councilor Merida.
Thank you. As mentioned, we are planning to revitalize our downtown. It's ironic that the Bank of America building was mentioned. I actually went in and used the counter service When I first got to town, it was a open bank. It was a place of business. It has been closed for at least 12 years. The club was under renovation when we first came here. It's been closed for the entire time, vacant. Nothing going on. Yeah, property rights. They have the right to maintain an open, empty building, and that is their right. They must be getting some kind of benefit. Are you so rich you can have a building just sit there with no rent, no tenants? I mean, what's going on there? I mean, are you getting a big tax write-off? Are you depreciating it? I mean, I wish I could afford to leave a building open. Meanwhile, there's plenty of people that want a space, a small startup that'll probably be coming out of the business challenge, would love for a storefront to move into and contribute to our downtown. As far as it being punitive, I would try to incorporate in the code, if you can't find a tenant, put in a gallery, put some art in there, maintain it, put something to bring foot traffic there. Don't just leave it a decaying hole in our downtown. Directly across the street is a real eyesore that anybody coming to do business with the city of Cottage Grove look across there and see this building that's been vacant for at least, I want to say 8 years. So anything that we can do to encourage out-of-state absentee landlords to do something to bring some life into our downtown and other commercial areas in the city, I think we should pursue. If they're getting a benefit, they should share some of it with us. Thank you.
Councilor Irvin.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, there was elements of the criticism of this that I do recognize that, and I thought it was a good reminder. We should be looking to incentivize businesses to look at the opportunity that is Cottage Grove and say, this is a waste for my building to be here. I can make more money because this is an attractive place to be, and I want to rent it out. And there's vendors that can pay their bills that would want to be in my store. And I think that's what we're trying to do as a council. That's what Public Works and Community Development Director Stewart is trying to do. You know, this is the whole city, our new city manager, planning. We're aiming at this. And so I take that seriously, that we are trying to do that. I don't want it. What I don't want to do is have a depressed downtown and say, oh, now we're going to tax you too, because that isn't going to incentivize it. I would like every effort to be made to say, like I just said, you're going to want to be here. You're going to want to put your business here, and we're going to want to attract. Now, I can perceive that there are instances where they don't care, right? Where that's not the incentive that they have. And I think we should have a mechanism that says, look, no, you're not going to drag what we're doing down. And so I'm on board with that. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but that's what I'm looking for in this. And that's why I've been supportive of let's investigate. So I think it was good clarity. I affirm. Yeah, let's win. Carrot. Go carrot.
We're at the 9 o'clock hour. Is it okay to proceed? All right. All right. Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I too have mixed feelings. I definitely believe in people's property rights, but that becomes a problem and when it becomes a nuisance. And this is, effectively the first steps towards, property that's becoming a nuisance. And so I can see the advantage of a registration where now the police know that a property is vacant, so they can drive by it on occasion to make sure nobody's broken in and is squatting in that place. Although I think that those become self-evident in time anyway. And I kind of agree with the carrot and the stick, assessment from Councilor Irvin, that I think there also should be incentives. So I guess I'm cautiously supportive as long as the property is maintained. I certainly wouldn't want any ramifications to an owner. I don't think it's our I think the punitive comment actually has merit if it's not a detriment to our community. And like Councilor Irvin said, I'm not sure how to codify that. Miss Attorney, let's come up with something that's vague but legal. And I know that's silly, right? So we're
That's
gonna
what it
have to
all
come
is.
up, we're gonna have to come up with something better. And so I welcome the conversation around what is it we could do that is not a burden to folks who are maintaining property, but is a disincentive for properties that are becoming a problem before they reach that nuisance level. The other advantage I can see is knowing actually who is maintaining property. So somebody may actually have a contact person already responsible. This would be a way of knowing that.
And I do like the thought of staff reaching out to property owners and kind of moving in that direction first.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's, from my standpoint, next steps are definitely going to be reaching out to the Chamber of Commerce folks, reaching out to individual business owners and downtown folks, and kind of getting their feedback. And, you know, if we can take the comments I heard this evening, take the comments that I hear from the business owners, and then maybe sit down with the city attorney and see if we can craft something and say, you know, this is what we heard. This is, you know, a recommendation of a direction to go, or probably a couple of options of different directions that we could go. You know, as we say, there's the carrot and the stick, and we want the carrot. I mean, look, you know, a rising tide raises all ships. The more businesses we can build in our downtown area, the more and the better all of us are going to do. So,
Okay. Councilor Sim?
Thank you. I think if we're talking about you know, the potential of an inventory to see which camp a property would fall in, if it is a, you know, being well maintained and just hasn't, you know, hasn't motivated someone to locate there, then I mean, obviously that's different than a property that is a hazard. So I would hope that could be our next steps to kind of see where the properties actually fall and where the improvement could happen.
Mr. Stewart?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to add a few comments and thoughts. We in the planning department have had multiple interactions with people that have wanted to lease the buildings that have been mentioned this evening. It's not that I don't believe that the property owners don't want to lease them. It's just that, you know, there was a pharmacy that wanted to buy the old bank building, but when they found out the difficulty of trying to use a shuttered drive up, that didn't work. There was also a food store that was wanting to go in that same building. And they come up against challenges to meet their business plan and be able to make enough money to move forward. Same with the club building. The Sanity Chocolates was wanting to go in there. I believe there was another potential candy manufacturer that wanted to go in there and entertain looking at it. So we could probably provide you some sort of a list of people that have actually looked at these structures. The building across the street here has been for sale for multiple years, and it's been, you know, was purchased by an individual that had plans for that building, and due to unforeseen circumstances is not able to move forward. Some of it maybe listening as economic development, maybe an urban renewal district could be formed, and there could be a loan program that could help bridge the gap, where we find a lot of projects that want to go someplace, but they can't get that last bit of funding to make, you know, to be able to proceed, because there's traditional banking, and if you don't come to the table with enough resources, you don't get to move forward with your project. So that could be something that the council considers as we move forward. We also are cautiously anticipating waiting the $750,000 grant from Paul Bruin that Mr. Mongan has applied for, that could go a long ways in helping some of these dilapidated buildings. We have a $6.5 million project that's going to take off here at the end of the year, first part of next year. It's going to change the landscape of some of the things that I think people don't necessarily want to be located on a place where their sidewalks are not safely traversed, and they can't open a door when you park along the curb. There's a lot of things that we need to continue to proceed with trying to improve. I'm not saying that what you want to do isn't prudent too, but I want you to understand that there are people looking at these buildings, and it isn't necessarily because the property owner is just sitting on it.
It's not just the big bad property owner. Thank you, Mr. Stewart. All right.
Is there any other comments on that? Thank you, Faye. I appreciate that. As far as the budget committee meetings are concerned, we talked about this a little bit on Friday. We have our first budget committee meeting scheduled for Tuesday, May 14th, and our second meeting scheduled for Thursday, May 16th. Some members of the council have expressed an interest in attending the Chamber of Commerce Business Plan Challenge on Thursday night. So we have a couple of options of how we can deal with that situation. We can keep the second meeting on the May 16th so folks can attend the chamber event and just be excused from the budget committee meeting. We could keep the second meeting on the 16th and perhaps not start it until 7:30, which would allow folks to attend the chamber event first. And a third option is we could move the second meeting to Wednesday night, understanding that this room is going to be occupied by the Planning Commission, so we would have to find another location. Also, as a practical matter, if there's significant changes made by the Budget Committee to the budget on Tuesday night, please no, then we would have a hard time on Wednesday having those changes into new budget pages for you. Another thing that to keep in mind is if we do push it to perhaps the next week, we run into other deadline issues because we have to publish the budget a certain number of days or before it can be adopted. We have to, and we only have a weekly newspaper that we can publish it in that has their own dates for when we can get that to the newspaper. So the further out we go, the more problematic it becomes. So it would behoove us to at least try to get 2 meetings in this week if we can. So with that, I'm open to suggestions.
Councilor Semmett.
Do we know how many folks are affected by the potential conflict on Thursday? Okay. Would there potentially be others on the budget committee? Do we know?
At this point, Bird, I think there's 2. Yeah.
Councilor Mary.
Thank you, Mayor. What about Thursday starting at 7? So it could go for a while and then come here, because traditionally the second meeting doesn't last as long as the first.
That's certainly an acceptable alternative to staff. I kind of need to hear from you folks if that's going to work for you.
Councilor Flood.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I have mixed feelings because I'm not passionate about that event. And I do know that the budget process this year is likely going to be very difficult. We've never, in all the years I've done it, gone 3 meetings, and I can actually see us going 3 meetings. So, I mean, if we need to, set it later, I agree. I think for staff to make changes from Tuesday night to Wednesday, it would be very, very problematic. And so I don't support that decision. I think going later is acceptable, and maybe even reaching out to the committee members and just saying, hey, do you mind if we put some longer nights in just so that we can, get through it? Although I'll be honest, after I've stared at numbers for a certain amount of time, I'm actually very much less effective the longer we go. So I would recommend we just keep the current schedule and maybe change that second date to 7, the Thursday date to 7.
I would be fine with that. So
What was can you repeat that?
Oh, basically just go with the option where we change the Thursday meeting time to 7, but keep the schedule as is other than that.
I have kids who'll be awake till I get home. I mean, I guess I'm willing and able to be the only person who has that problem, but that would be a really tough night for me.
Which night?
To start at 7 on Thursday.
Oh. Will we have a virtual component? I'm sorry. Madam Mayor. Will we have a virtual component that Counselor Stinnett could? I know it's a little challenging because we're meeting out there, so I'm not sure what we can do to enhance that ability for a virtual.
Okay. That's fine. I mean, if I'm the only one holding it up, then I won't.
Are you guys in agreement?
I think so.
All right. So just to be clear, we'll be starting the meeting on Thursday night at 7 p.m. Okay. Thank you. Just a couple other quick items. The folks that are that are thinking of starting up a recreation district had a great meeting with them last week, and one of the things that we were talking about was the city of Cresswell is conducting a survey on their city website. And it's been suggested to me by the mayor and a couple of council members that we do a similar survey so that we can solicit opinions here in Cottage Grove. And just to let you know, we will be getting that up on our website the next week or two. And then finally, just remind everybody that the workshop is scheduled for 8:30 starting on Saturday. So look forward to being there. We went through the agenda on Friday, and so the city recorder is taking my crib notes of an agenda and turning it into a real one. So thank you for doing that. And that would conclude my report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Business from city attorney.
I think you're going to be hearing enough from me on Saturday. And so I'm going to just not share further, except for the fact that you might have seen me on my phone, which was me making notes for myself because my pen ran out of ink. So just wanted to be clear. I'm not turning into my children.
Yeah. All right. Items removed from the consent agenda. I see none. So adjournment.